Sharpening generally involves abrading a blade with higher and higher grits in order to get a polished edge on both sides that go off into infinity. Some techniques for doing this are creating a concave edge, generally what we call hollow grinding, so that as you remove metal, you're not having to remove too much metal, and your angle is dictated by the 2 points touching down. Some people that hand sharpen prefer a convex style of bevel because I feel it gives a better edge when they're riding that bevel through cuts. Plus it's easier to sharpen because you can just roll it back and forth and you're not removing that much metal at any one spot. So you can really quickly touch up just this front portion right here and not worry about the back. A lot of jig users prefer an absolutely straight blade, where some of them might round over the back so it doesn't bruise the wood if they do come off of that bevel, and some people might prefer a micro bevel up front in order to sharpen without having to remove metal from the entire blade. With just that bit of information, you should be able to grasp the concept of all the different sharpening styles in the hand tool woodworking realm. So, with that bit of information, let's sharpen some weird stuff, like that spoke shave I told you I would give you a tutorial on earlier in the week. Do you want a tip to make your woodworking career a lot more enjoyable? Well, here it is. Don't buy a tool that you don't know how to sharpen, because it's not going to come from the factory sharp enough, and if you don't know how to sharpen it, you will be continually disappointed with its performance. That is why I never bought a tanged spoke shave, because I knew I didn't know how to sharpen one properly. Now, what do I mean by a tanged spoke shave? Well, in the old days, they would take a piece of iron and they would put a nice edge on it, and then they would just heat up the ends and fold them up. And they'd actually fold them up so that they were kind of sprung this way, so you could slide it in two parallel holes and the spring action would kind of hold it into the spoke shave. And that's how they locked all the blades in. Then they would simply cut the body to the depth so that the cutting edge was exposed at the proper depth. Now, when I bought this kit to make my bevel up plane, I specifically chose the hawk blade for the simple reason I can take off these two setups right here. Now, that ability to get this flat edge to make sharpening easier was one of the original reasons why I chose this particular plane as my first metal body plane to buy, spoke shave. Because with a simple twist of the screws, I can drop that blade out and it is completely flat, allowing me to hollow grind it, and then I can use that 2 points in order to sharpen the edge. I did the same thing on this one too. I also believe that's probably why this has become such a really popular design, because look at the blade. Not only is it flat, so you can flatten the back and sharpen the front, but it's got a lot more meat on it. So it makes it a lot easier to freehand on the grindstones. So let me grab my stones and we'll get busy. Those of y'all who've seen me sharpen recognize this rig. What I got is coarse, medium, fine, super fine, or some variations in between. This is roughly the equivalent of 250, 1000, 4000, and 8000. Put a little water on them. Now, none of these are beat up, so I'm not going to start on the coarsest one, but I will give them a few strokes on the medium one. And all it is stick it in the water, find my rocking position, and then keeping very even pressure on it, work it back and forth a few strokes. Stop and feel. When I have a slight burr all the way across, I'm missing a burr right about there, you can go on to the next stone. Notice I'm not putting any weight on my thumbs. The thumbs are just kind of help there to stabilize it. All my weight's on the tip of the blade, keeping it nice and flat. From there, just go over to the next one. And you generally do not have to do as many strokes the higher up you go. I do kind of like to twist my angles, because I think that those cross hatching makes the metal come off a little bit quicker. Feel your burr. And then go to your finest. And feel it. Got a nice shine all the way around. Now this blade right here is a bevel down plane, okay? So the bottom is right there. So I have no reason why I couldn't put the slightest of micro bevels on back using the ruler trick. And that involves using a uber thin metal shaving. And this is going to put a little bit of a higher back bevel than a full plane blade because I can't get this coming all the way over. But if you do the math, I believe it comes out to like 1/4 of a degree. And you don't do too much of it, just a few strokes to put a little polish on the back. That not only removes the burr, but you can see just a little bit of more of a shine on the base of the blade. Now on the bevel up planes where this is the bottom of your spoke shave, this is what's riding on the wood, you never want to do that trick on the tip. Because even the slightest bit, if you're taking 1/1000th of an inch shaving, it'll cause this thing not to cut right. You want that flatness on bottom. So to sharpen this one, I'll do the same exact thing. I will come over 1,000 grit, 4,000 grit, 8,000 grit. And watch your fingertips. You can very easily grind them off. Feel for the burr. And then I will turn the whole thing, lay it down flat, and sharpen it like this. This only works if you have completely flattened the bottom, but this is really sticking hard, so I know I've got a nice flat bottom. And that's one advantage of buying from a reputable company, because the blades themselves will come so close to flat that you don't have to do too much work to get the rest of the way. And there we go. Another blade back to service. I can do the same exact process for this one. Since we've been talking about spoke shaves, and spoke shaves are one of the most common tools used in green woodworking, for today's bonus, I thought I would talk about one of the most influential woodworkers in the green woodworking movement. In fact, the guy that coined the term green woodworking. But before we do that one, if you enjoyed this video, please like, favorite, subscribe, do all those social medias. All that kind of stuff really does help you out. And if you've gotten something out of this series and all the long form videos I'm more well known for, please consider visiting my website, wortheffort.com. I have a lot of articles there and continue to add more to them in the future. Plus, I have a web store where you can buy some of my own woodworking and a lot of the swag I put out there. All this stuff really does help support the school. Swag such as these t-shirts and hats. Now, one of the woodworkers I respect the most for his educational ability is Peter Follensby. Yet he credits Jennie Alexander as one of the most influential people in his woodworking career. Now, Jennie Alexander he's kind of known for these post-it and rung chairs. He kind of brought that movement back to it, and he produced a very famous book, From a Tree to a Chair. And it's been out of print for a while. Used copies are going for $200+ on Amazon. But he is working on a 3rd edition, which I hope will be out soon, because I don't have this book in there. But he's got a lot of articles online and on his website, greenwoodworking.com, that has a lot of the information. And he also gave it to us in the form of that From a Tree to a Joint Stool that he collaborated with Peter Follensby, produced a few years ago. One of my favorite woodworking books. But Jennie has been doing this high-end research on how people built stuff for over 40 years. And he introduced me to concepts such as, did you know that if you want a mortise and tenon joint to fit perfectly for centuries on like a stool or a chair or anything like that, that you actually do not want it to fit tight all the way around. You can add strategic gaps that will reinforce the joint to make it stronger and fit tighter over the centuries. It's really cool. And that kind of information you can find on his website, which it's a very basic website. Just follow the links on the side and you can find all this rich wealth of knowledge. So, visit greenwoodworking.com and take all the information he is giving out there for free. It'll be well worth your time.